Hi, I'm Andrew Wallace, and welcome to the We've Got a Problem podcast. I had a fascinating conversation this week with Terry Tucker, founder of Motivational Check and author of Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. This week, we're going to talk about grit, determination, and finding where your breaking point is. Enjoy. So, Terry, welcome to the show. I reviewing your biography, I could not get over how many different things you've done. Former NCAA Division I basketball player, SWAT team hostage negotiator, but also you've been a cancer warrior for the last 10 years and certainly been through some trials and tribulations with that. Stuff that would probably form anybody a chance to not have a positive outlook on life. And you've taken the opposite tact. You've been able to focus on kind of the healthy aspects of being sick. You have, I think, four truths that you focus on. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I guess first of all, Andrew, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking with you. Yeah, for the last 10 years, I've been battling a rare form of melanoma that appeared of all places on the bottom of my foot, which, I kind of joke. I never remember as a kid laying out in the sun with my feet up in the air, so. You think of melanoma more as a sun exposure kind of cancer, but there's this rare form that I have that appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. And there's even a rarer form of melanoma, not that you probably want to know this, but that appears in your mucous membrane. So in your nose or your mouth or something like that, but it's still melanoma. And melanoma is really kind of a tricky and ugly disease that once you get it, it's kind of hard to get rid of. But yeah, so over the last 10 years, I've had a lot of time to sort of lay in bed and heal and think and all that kind of stuff. And I've come up with these four truths, and I'll give them to you. They're one sentence each. I have them on a Post-it note sitting here in my office. The first one is control your mind, or your mind will control you. The second one is embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life, and use that pain and difficulty to make you a stronger and more resilient individual. The third one is more of a legacy truth, and it's what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And the fourth one, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I look at these things as sort of the bedrock of my soul. They're just a good place to establish a foundation and to build a quality life off of.
Man, I can't agree with you more on that. Especially, when you say when remembering as long as you don't quit, you can't be defeated. That's that's one that's hard for everybody to remember when you're going through difficult times, when you any kind of adversity, small or large. The temptation is to go, this isn't my thing. I'm not doing well. I don't have to do this. And to start to develop that resistance that comes through, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? You it's that whole if whether you think you're right or you think you're wrong, you're right. If you stop, you're 100% guaranteed to fail. And if you don't quit, it's not defeat. You're still going, man. That's a really powerful thought.
Yeah, it's funny. Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II, had a great saying. He said, "If you're going through hell, keep going." Yeah. That's exactly what you're saying. Don't quit. Don't give up. And so many people do. Very few people will ever get to where they want to be in life, because they won't stop whining and complaining about where they're at. Very few people. I'm 61 years old. Very few people take responsibility for their own success and happiness. And, I think you kind of nailed it there. We have dreams, we have goals, we have ambitions, and we start down the path to realizing those. And then we butt up against some kind of an impediment. Something gets in our way. And we can't get over it. We can't get through it. We can't get around it. So we quit and we give up. But we just don't do that. Now we want to look for somebody to blame. We want to blame our parents, or we want to blame our boss or our station in life. And, when I got cancer, people were like, well, who do you blame? I'm like, what do you mean? Who do I blame?
Well, you got to have somebody to blame.
Yeah, it's got to be somebody. And I'm like, well, I don't blame anybody. And I have a very strong faith. And when people find that out, they're like, well, you must blame God. And I sort of joke. I'm like, no, I don't think God got up on Tuesday morning, checked his to-do list and said, Terry Tucker cancer today. I mean, I don't think that at all. So I don't blame anybody. And I even go so far, a couple of years ago, I had some genetic testing done of all 88 genes that doctors either know of or suspect cause all kinds of cancer, not just the melanoma that I had. And I have absolutely no mutations in any of those genes, which sort of begs the question, then why did I get this disease? And nobody's ever been able to tell me that. And so I don't spend a lot of time worrying about why I got it. I just know I got it.
Well, so many people worry about all that and they obsess over it. Not necessarily the why of cancer, but the why of anything that actually is inconsequential because it's in the past. Like, okay, we don't need to deal with the why we had the problem. We've got a problem. We need to deal with that and move forward. And obsessing over why and how and all that isn't going to help us unless it's obvious to us immediately, because otherwise we just need to deal with this problem and move forward. That's Walt Disney said, around here we don't look back for very long, we just keep moving forward. And that's kind of what you have to do, whether it's in life or anything else. You got to keep moving. And the why,
so many people don't, and you know that, so many people want to look backwards. Why did this happen to me? I don't know why it happened to you. I mean, if you've exhausted all your possibilities of trying to find that out, then why are you still obsessing with it? I mean, I can't do anything about the past. What good, bad, and different, whatever I did, whatever mistakes I made and things like that, can't do a thing about it. But I can start from today, from right now, and move forward in a better way. I can change things I didn't like. I can accentuate the things that I did like, and I can move forward and make Terry Tucker a better person. I can't do anything about the past, but so many people live their lives in the past and miss out on all the good fortune that, because they're doing that.
Well, a friend of mine, Jill Connor Brown, who I hope to have on the show soon, has a saying, and I don't know where she got it. I'm not sure it's hers or not, but if you keep 1 foot in yesterday and 1 foot in tomorrow, the only thing you'll be able to accomplish is crapping all over today. And that's kind of true. Like, if you're looking back and you've lost the day, I can't be effective today if I'm constantly focused on the past. One of the things that I'm really interested in your story, interested about in your story, is the fact that you share a belief that I do, that people may not all have the same talents or gifts or kind of God-given proclivity for something, but that we all kind of have the potential to be the best person that we can be, so to speak. Can you talk to me a little bit more about how we can do that when everybody seems like they're just kind of getting by?
Yeah, it sounds like a Wheaties commercial, doesn't it? Or a Gatorade commercial, whatever it was.
Yeah, or the Army slogan, right? Be
all
exactly.
You can be. You're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we all have unique gifts and talents. I mean, what you're good at, I may not be good at. But we spend so much time, and I think this is hilarious, especially for young people, today. And I've got a daughter who's 26 years old, and she's not like this, but I know a lot of her friends are. That it's like, hey, it's all about me. I'm important, and you've got to. I always say to young people, I'm like, you're unique, but you're not special. As much as you think you are, you're unique, but you're not special. And they get so hung up in, hey, it's all about me, I'm special. But then they get all worried about the person who gets online and says, oh, you're ugly, or that top you wore today was ugly, or you're stupid, or you're like, if it's all about you, why do you care what other people think about you? And again, I think it kind of goes back to the thing we were talking about earlier about the past. We spend so much time worrying about what other people think and what other people say and what other people do that we miss out on who cares what they say? What do you think? What do you do? I always say the end of your life, you're not going to be judged by what other people said or thought or did. You're going to be judged by what you said, what you thought, what you did. So don't spend a lot of time, especially comparing. And I know our daughter is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. And about a year ago, she's like, this guy I graduated with, he's worth $10 million now. And I'm like, okay.
Cool.
And yeah, I'm like, good for him. But why are you concerned about that? I mean, that's his path. That's the life that he's supposed to live. He's got a lot of money now. Good for him. I don't know how he got it, but good for him. But so why are you worried about that? I mean, again, we take our self-worth from other people. And I'm not saying you shouldn't look at other people and say, hey, I like that quality in that individual, and I would like to emulate that. I would like to, bring that into my repertoire of how I live my life. That's fine. But comparing yourself to other people is like, it's just a total waste of time, because you're not that person. You are you. And for some reason, we're not comfortable in our own skin, but somehow we think we're going to be comfortable in somebody else's skin.
Yeah. Well, it's been a recurring theme on the show. I mean, I think I've talked about it maybe on every episode for the last 5 or 6 episodes, that in the Instagram generation, we compare our insides to somebody else's outsides. And that we're getting this kind of second-handed view of ourselves, that we get everything from everybody else, or we're tending to. And that for some reason, people don't think through what matters to them, to that what's important to them. Because if you go, look, I would like to make a lot of money. Okay, great. If you share that goal, you might be able to learn from somebody else. You might be able to look and go, what is it that they're doing that I can do? That's fine. That's not really a comparison, though. I mean, and of course, competition is good. Competition can be important for some people. But when you're sitting there and you're getting your self-worth from how other people view you, and you're getting your ideas of what matter from what matters to other people, and it's not anything that connects to your own internal compass, you're actually missing out. I mean, you're living a partial life, it seems. You can't possibly be great if you're not great to yourself.
You're right. But think about what do we focus on? We have New Year's resolutions, we set goals, we do all this kind of stuff, but we don't do exactly what you just said. I think before you do all that stuff, you have to kind of come over here and say, what are my values?
Yeah.
What are the things that are important to me? What am I willing to give my life for? What am I willing to die for? And I bet if you ask a lot of people that question, what means enough to you in your life that you'd be willing to die for? I bet you'd have a lot of people who'd be like, nothing, maybe my family or something. You get some kind of, nobody thinks about that, but we got to set goals and we got to have resolutions. But I think before you set goals and resolutions, you have to understand your values. And if you understand your values and you commit to those values, goals are easier to set, because now you pair those values with your goals. And now it's like, okay, this is something that means something to me, that's in my heart, that's in my soul, that is me. And I'm willing to work hard for that to see if I can make that happen. That's a whole lot different than, okay, I got to set goals. So I'm going to put a bunch of stuff down. Okay, now I'm going to, we never accomplish those goals. I mean, what is it? By February 1st, 80% of New Year's resolutions are out the window. It's like, yeah, we don't even do that. So, I mean, why is that? Because we don't commit those goals, or we don't use values to set those resolutions. And I think that's a huge point that you just made, because very few people know what their values are anymore today.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's hard to figure it out, especially in what I consider to be somewhat of a second-handed world, right? If everybody is doing it one way, you kind of end up following that same path without even meaning to. It's the same thing. I talked to a guest recently who her episode just posted on student debt, student loans. And everybody has kind of taken the tact that going to college and taking out huge amounts of debt is what we do. And she said we've normalized overconsumption. But when everybody's doing it, you don't realize that that's not, in a sense, actually normal, because it is normal. It's the average. Everybody's doing it. So starting with, as I think there's a book, Simon Sinek, Start With Why, but starting with your values is the only way, as I see it, to stick with your goals. Because if you don't have a why, the goal doesn't mean anything. It doesn't resonate with you.
It's empty.
Yeah.
I agree. And when our daughter, her first 3 years of high school, she went to a private school in Texas. And it was amazing for me to kind of look at the parents that were like, well, if you don't get into the University of Texas at Austin, your life is done. I mean, the pressure they put on these kids that you have to get into this school was amazing. I mean, my wife went to Bemidji State University, which is University of Minnesota at Bemidji, which is in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. It's an incredibly successful person. It doesn't matter where you go to school. And Mike Rowe, the television personality who did, Dirty Jobs and that kind of stuff, he's got a big initiative right now for people to get into the trades, whether it's diesel mechanic or whether it's, a bricklayer or because you can make a lot of money and builders and contractors are starving for these kind of people, but we've got to go to college. I've got to go to college. Well, why? If that's not really what, if you're good at taking engines apart, why wouldn't you play to your strength and go make, $150,000 a year as a 18-year-old kid, because nobody's out there doing that. They need more people like that. So
yes, we do.
Right. I mean, it's our parents, it's our caregivers. So, this is what you've got to do. And you come out. I mean, I've got a niece, God love her. I love her to death. She went to Marquette University, Catholic University in Milwaukee, came out with an elementary education degree, is $109,000 in debt.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is ridiculous. It's
mortgage level debt. I mean, maybe not now, because mortgages are really high now, but that's still the kind of thing that and we expect way too much of 18-year-olds who are technically adults by the legal definition, but not necessarily emotionally mature enough and worldly educated enough to understand what they're really doing. Like how hard it is to pay off $109,000 of student loan debt when you're making $45,000 a year. Like what that means, what that actually pencils out at, and what your life's going to look like. And people don't want that life. You go, well, it's and don't understand the trade-offs that they're making. Hey, look, if you want to take out $109,000 of debt, and you've got a plan for how you're going to pay that back, and it's a full, well thought out, like, okay, I'm going to dig myself into the hole, and I've got a plan for how I'm going to get out, and I know exactly what path I'm going to follow, and you stick to that thing. But man, does that take away a lot of flexibility when some cool opportunity comes along, especially when you're young, and you have the ability to fail miserably over and over and still have plenty of time left. I'm in my late 30s, and my runway is shorter now. There's fewer things that I can fail at and still get all the other things that I'd like to get done in life done. I don't mean to be negative on college, but it seems like the goal of so many colleges and universities is actually just to make you interesting at a cocktail party, and less to teach you something like that's. Did you take comparative literature? Cool, interesting, maybe to you, but it doesn't give you an employable real world skill right away off the bat to pay back that debt you took out for your comp lit degree.
It does. Which is a shame, and again, but we're forced into. I mean, when I was growing up, getting a college degree meant, okay, now you're going to get a good job. I mean, today, I've met a lot of people that are, supposedly very educated, but are incredibly ignorant, and can't think for themselves and can't critically think and be like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem to make sense. There you go. Good. That's what you should have learned in college. And my brothers, both my brothers are in education. And my one brother is like, he's kind of he's changed the curriculum in his school to be more hands-on. Don't just sit up there as a teacher and lecture, take notes and then spit it back to me on a test, because a year from now, you're not going to remember any of that. But if you get engaged, hey, we're talking about the Civil War, and I say, go write a report about something that interests you in the Civil War. Okay, I'm going to write a report about, the cannons that were used, or the general that did this. That's something that's, I remember something about that now. It's tactile.
Right.
If you're involved in it, you learn. If you're just, regurgitating something that you saw on a blackboard or a whiteboard, how are you ever going to, that doesn't help you develop as a human being.
Well, like you said something really important, which is you used to learn how to think.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to learn in any school. Once you learn how to think, then you think for yourself. Then you analyze, then you find the knowledge, you do what you want to do, and you know how to move through that. But if all you learn is the facts and statistics and pieces of knowledge that a teacher wants you to know for the test, you never learn how to think through that. You just know how to say what somebody wants you to say. Again, second-handed kind of things. You have to get everything from everybody else. It becomes a dependent kind of personality. What did the paper say? Okay, that's the truth. And you go, what have you thought through that a little bit? Have you thought through what they're feeding you? Does that make sense?
What's the other side of the coin?
Right.
What's the, when I was in business, people would, okay, well, this is the way it was. And I always kind of would ask the question, well, what's the other side? What's the competition saying? Why is this product not as good as theirs? What are they saying? And if you can't tell me that, then you haven't figured this out.
Right.
It's stupid to go start marketing a product when we don't know how it stacks up against the competition, what the competition is going to say. We've got to understand that. And that's just seeing both sides of the coin. And then you make your decision, as a critical thinker. Okay, I see this. I see student debt. Okay, we want to forgive student debt. All right, you decide which one which side you want to come down on based on the facts of both of them. Then you make your informed decision. So
we've been kind of tap dancing around it, but the fact becomes that if, in my opinion, you don't start to live a more first-handed life, that there's a propensity for, and when we're not exposed to other people, right? Okay, so I'll come at this another way and cut out my little intro there. During the pandemic, we got cut off from most of the people that love us and give us strength, and we've talked about how people so often now get everything from outsiders rather than from their own internal thing. But during the pandemic, we were cut off from a lot of people. The American Psychological Association reports that depression, anxiety grew fourfold during the pandemic, with the sharpest increases in males and young adults and parents with children in the home. What do we do about that?
I just think that goes back to how, gosh, I don't know if I want to say that, how weak we are, how weak-minded we are in that. There's nothing in life. And don't get me wrong, everybody has a breaking point. Everybody has a point where I just can't do this anymore. But that breaking point is so far down the road that, it bothers me when I see people quit. I'll give you a story, and hang with me on this story because it's going to start out a little weird. But I read an article about a professor at Johns Hopkins University back in the 1950s who did an experiment. Here's where it kind of gets weird, with rats. He took rats and he put them in a tank of water that were over their head. And he wanted to see how long the average rat would tread water before they would sink and drown. The average rat treaded water for about 15 minutes and was just as they were getting ready to go under, just as they were getting ready to drown, he reached in, grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, let them rest for a while. Then he put the exact same rats back in the exact same tank of water. And the second time around, those rats treaded water for 60 hours. Think about that. First time, 15 minutes. That's all. This isn't bad. I'm going to die. In 15 minutes, I'm giving up. I'm going to die. Second time around, I can go for 60 hours. which said to me a couple things. Number one, the importance of hope in our life. We have to believe that wherever we are right now, whatever's going on, somewhere down the road, maybe not next month, maybe not next year, maybe not even 10 years from now, but somewhere down the road, life is going to get better for us. And secondly, just how much more physically we can handle than we ever thought we could. My wife works with a young man who's a former Navy SEAL, and the SEALs kind of talk about this same thing in a different way. They talk about their 40% rule, which basically says if you're at the end of your rope, you can't go on, you're done. You're only at 40% of your maximum, and you still have another 60% left to give to yourself. So all these people that are, out there whining and complaining, I mean, if you just have this much grit in your life, you're going to be so much farther down the road towards your goals than the people who, oh yeah, it's COVID. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, I know it sucks. I had my leg amputated in the middle of COVID. My wife dropped me off at the hospital, couldn't be with me. I was the only surgery that went. I know how bad it sucks. I know what it feels like to be alone. But trust me, I'm the biggest wimp in the world. If I can get through something like that, anybody can do it. We just got to be stronger mentally.
Right. Well, and part of the question is, how do we get there? I mean, because grit, determination, those kinds of things, they don't seem to come naturally, at least not in our world right now. When again, we may have normalized giving up. I don't know. How do we cultivate that resilience, right? So for those rats, I mean, they learned once they'd figured out that 15 minutes was not the end.
Right.
They kept going. How do we do that for ourselves? How do we teach ourselves that we've got so much more to give? Because it's easier said than done, at least in my observation.
I think it's easy, and here's what I think. And we're sort of fighting against evolution. We're sort of fighting against nature because, I mean, our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So we're fighting against that. But what I recommend to people, and I try to do this every single day of my life, do one thing that makes you nervous, that makes you uncomfortable, that scares you, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I mean, the other day, it's like, I hate going to the dentist. Picked up the phone, made my 6-month appointment to go to the dentist. Now, you'd be like, oh, it's no big deal. I know, but it was a little bit uncomfortable for me. But if you do those uncomfortable things every day, find something every day that makes you uncomfortable and do it. When the big things in life hit us, when we lose somebody who's close to us, when we, get fired from our job, when we find out we have, cancer or some kind of an illness, you'll be so much more resilient to handle those things than all the people that kind of, what I call it, like they live a casual life. And because of living that casual life, their goals, their dreams, their ambitions become a casualty of that unplanned living. And I've seen a lot of people die, both as my time as a police officer and certainly the last 10 years of cancer. And I'm going to make a huge generalization here. But it seems to me the people who die what I guess you and I would call peaceful deaths are the people who actually did something with their life versus the people that go kicking and screaming, that want another month, that want another year. Those seem, again, huge generalization, those seem to be the people that never really did anything with their life. So I would challenge your audience and be like, you know what, go out and do something comfortable. Get up an hour earlier today. Get off the couch. Yeah, I want to go to the gym, but no, I'm going to sit here and eat my ice cream and watch TV. Get up and do it. It's uncomfortable. But it's one thing. Do one thing every day, and I think you can get to the point where your mindset is that I can handle anything that life throws at me.
Well, that's such the key, right? I can handle it. I can do it. Getting to that point, because once you get past I can't, and you get to I can work through this. I got this. You've made a huge leap.
But that's just your brain. I mean, that's just you. Yeah, doing one thing every day that makes you uncomfortable, and your brain, and that was uncomfortable. Okay, I did that. I survived that. Boom. Now it's the next day. Now it's the next day. Now all of a sudden you've developed this great mindset.
Yeah, and it's the mindset. But the mindset is so crucial. I mean, for me, even personally, to sit there and go, I don't want to go to the gym, because the gym's a great example, like you said. I don't want to go. It's going to be miserable. It's going to be hard. And you go, but I've been to the gym. I I know how it goes. I know what happens here. I work out for an hour, hour and a half, and I feel great afterwards. Tired, but I feel great afterwards. And I've also seen the results. The resistance only comes before I've put my workout clothes on. Once I've got my workout clothes on, I'm going to the gym. Once I've packed my gym bag, it's happening. And now it's to the point of it's part of my day. Like now it's just a thing that happens. I don't even have to think about it. It's a habit. And there's a bunch of books out there. I think that the biggest one lately was Atomic Habits, about kind of working your way into making things a habit and somewhat automatic. But if we could make it automatic, that we take the mindset of whatever happens, I'm going to be able to figure it out. I may not come up with the perfect solution, but I'll be able to do something. This isn't the end.
Right. When I was growing up, Bobby Knight was the basketball coach at Indiana University. And I played basketball in Chicago, and a guy in my conference who I used to hang out with, a guy by the name of Isaiah Thomas, who played for Knight and then eventually went on to play for the Detroit Pistons, won a couple NBA championships, and actually won a national championship with Knight. And I would see Isaiah in the summer when we would both come back from college. And I'm like, what's Knight like? And, and stuff like that. He's like, he loves his players, cares about us and stuff like that. He said, but he used to say, Knight's got this interesting quote or interesting saying. And it was a very simple saying. Knight used to say, mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So if you think about, this great coach, one of the greatest college coaches of all time, who's teaching elite premier athletes how to use their body to be great basketball players, what he's really saying with that quote is that your mind or your mindset is 4 times more important than your physical body is. So we spend all this time going to the gym, pumping iron and doing it, looking at, I'm big, strong, but our minds are weak, and that's what we need to cultivate. Because if we can develop a strong mindset, like you said, you can handle anything that comes your way. You may not figure it out like that, but you'll eventually figure it out because you're not going to quit. You have that resilience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very powerful thoughts. So we're getting to the end here. I wanted to cover just a few things that I kind of try and cover with everybody. What do you think the most overrated concept is in kind of your industry of motivation that everybody just thinks is the greatest and turns out to be utter BS?
I really think that, we spend so much time, convincing ourselves that, you got it all together. And I don't know if you've read this book. It's called Legacy. It was written by the man by the name of James Kerr. And he embedded with the All Blacks, which is the New Zealand national rugby team, who by all accounts is probably the most successful sports franchise in any sport in any country of all times. And what I found interesting about this book was when they're bringing somebody onto their team, you would think, and I don't know anything about rugby, so I'm not even going to try to fake it here, but you would think you're going to bring somebody on who's technically competent or technically good at whatever position you're hiring for. And they do that to a point. But the two things that I thought were fascinating that they really look for when they hire are, number one, character. What kind of person are you? What kind of individual are you? And not when you're on the top. We're a great team and we're going to win probably more than we lose, but not when you're on the top. How do you act? Do you go home and kick the dog and beat the wife after a loss? Are you that kind of a person? Or do you do you learn from that? And the second thing was humility. And the way they look at it as, and I look back on my life and all the job interviews I've had, and how many times did I go into the interviews and be like, man, I better have the answer to every single question they have, or I'm not going to get this job. And what they say is, you need to be humble. You need to realize that you don't have all the answers. You individually don't. Us collectively do. So I think the whole thing of, it's all about me and I'm important and, all that kind of stuff. That's yes, that's true. But in terms of being successful in life, that's a bunch of crap. nobody ever gets to the top by themselves. There's always a team. I don't care if it's your parents. I don't care, if you got one person, whoever it is. So that whole thing that, you're special. You're not. I'll go back to you're unique, but you're not special. But you've got to be humble. You individually don't have all the answers. Us collectively, as the All Blacks, as the team, we'll come together and figure it out. But you don't have to have all the answers. So it's a great book. I would recommend it to anybody. I mean, I think I got 4 pages of notes out of the thing. It's just an amazing kind of book. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my answer. It
does. So, and the corollary to that, or the whatever they call it, I contra something, is what is the most kind of underrated concept that everybody overlooks? What do you think we need more of?
I think we need more grit. I think we need more resilience. I think we need to realize that, like I said, everybody's got a breaking point. I went to college at a military school in South Carolina called the Citadel. And one year, one of the presidents of the school when I was there was a guy by the name of Stockdale, James Stockdale, who you probably don't remember, but this guy was the highest ranking officer in the Hanoi Hilton. He was a pilot. He was shot down during the Vietnam War. He was beaten mercilessly. He won the Medal of Honor. And this guy, I mean, by all accounts, should be dead a number of times, but actually beat himself so that the Vietnamese could not use him as propaganda, during some media events and things like that. And this guy talks about how we quit so much earlier than our breaking point is. This was a guy who talked a lot about breaking point. He and his wife wrote a book called In Love and War. It's a really good book because she writes a chapter and then he writes a chapter, and then and it's kind of like what she was doing in the United States while he was a captive, and then what he was doing while she was doing what she was doing. So it's a pretty interesting book to, it sort of mirrors two people's lives at the exact same time, going through two entirely different things. But just a guy who was like, no, our breaking point way down the road, we give up much too soon and think, well, I'm done. I can't go on.
Yeah. Well, and we all, again, cultivating, learning where your breaking point is, and that it's not where you think it is.
Right.
Is a crucial thing. Again, even something as simple as the gym. Right? Yeah. You go to the gym, you're doing your pull-ups, and you go, I'm going to go till failure, and you go, where you're going is fatigue.
Right.
That's not failure.
Right.
There's failure is when you can no longer hold on to the bar.
Right. Yeah, when your muscles are quivering and that's failure. Yeah.
And of course, you don't actually want to do that every time you go to the gym. That is not an effective way to work out. But but knowing where that line is and that you've got a little bit more is how you break through plateaus, whether it's in life or at the gym.
Think about Roger Bannister. Everybody said, the 4-minute mile, can't do it. Absolutely. Never, nobody will ever be able to do that. Well, Roger Bannister did it. And then all of a sudden, 30 people did it after him. It was sort of, that was an imaginary barrier there that absolutely nobody can ever get through that. Well, as soon as the first person does, well, now all of a sudden, all these people follow him through that barrier. So, just because somebody says you can't do it doesn't mean you can't do it.
The moment somebody proves that something is possible and shatters that false belief that it's not, then it's like, oh, all right, let's go. Let's run that 4-minute mile. It's possible, right? Somebody did it. I'm curious about the mindset, and I think everybody's goal, children, should be to be that first person who proves that it is, because that's really cool.
Yeah. We talk about Roger Bannister. We don't know the names of the other people that came after him.
Right.
But they did it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We've had an excellent conversation, Terry. I really appreciate it. If you want to know more about Terry Tucker, you can check him out on his website at motivationalcheck.com. At the height of the pandemic, he released his book, Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, also available on Amazon. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.